Hello friends, and welcome to Recommendations with Riley's Library. Today I'm going to give you some recommendations based on specific book tropes. I got these book tropes from my Instagram followers. I had a story asking what book tropes would you like to see recommendations of on my YouTube channel. So I'm going to be recommending books based on book tropes that were suggested by my Instagram followers. So the first trope that a follower suggested was friends to enemies to lovers. But I feel like friends to enemies to lovers is not something I've read that often, or I feel like it was kind of hard for me to actually find one. But I did find one book, so I do have one recommendation for this book trope. And that recommendation is a faux love story. So this is Romeo and Juliet style enemies to lovers. The families hate each other. They have opposing restaurants across the street from each other. It has lots of food. They just kind of have to hate each other by association, but then they actually hang out and realize that they kind of like each other. And the way that this, I think, fits the friends to enemies to lovers is that it backtracks and does show you this scene where they are children and they like play together and they would have been really good friends. In that moment they felt like friends until their parents kind of stopped them realizing who the other child was, and it became one of these things where like you can't be near this family, and they were told that they were to hate each other basically. So before they find out that their families hate each other and they're just children, they actually are friends for a moment. So they go from friends to then enemies by force, and then lovers by accident or fate. It is really cute and sweet, and I definitely recommend it for this book trope. Alright, the next book trope I'm going to talk about, I actually got two requests that were kind of similar. So first someone said underrated found family trope, and then someone else just said just found family trope. Since I had both the requests for underrated and just the found family trope, I'm going to suggest three different books. Two of them I have read, one of them I have not, and one of them I feel like is more popular than maybe the others. And so the first one I would recommend is The House in the Cerulean Sea. I talked about this on my top 10 favorites. So this book follows a man who works for the Department of Magical Youth, and he has to go visit these orphanages and see like, are they suitable for these kids to be staying in, and he goes to the worst of the worst. If you want to know more about like what this is about, you can go watch that other video, but there is found family in this. It is heartwarming and precious and sweet, and I absolutely love it. I think it's a little more like hyped than fits the underrated found family trope, but I definitely think if you want a good heartwarming found family that's not like Six of Crows, because I feel like that's super hyped and stereotyped as that, I would definitely recommend House in the Cerulean Sea. Raven Cycle is another example of found family as well. Their little group is cute and sweet. I've only read the first book, so I don't know how the rest of them goes, but I know that this does have found family in it, and it was a really good book. I just need to read the rest. And so it's about this girl named Blue who is a psychic. They're looking for the ley lines because they want to find the Raven King, and so this kid who's obsessed with it, their fates meet, and they're like on this journey to find the Raven King together, which I think is like the whole premise of the whole series. This was really good first book, and it has found family, so if you're looking for that, I suggest The Raven Boys. My last suggestion for a found family trope is one I have not read, and it is The Gilded Wolves. I have heard good things about this. I know that a lot of people say if you like Six of Crows, you'll like The Gilded Wolves. And so I don't know much else other than I do know that it has found family in it. So The Gilded Wolves is basically like kind of like Six of Crows. It's not the same obviously, but it is set in Paris, and it's more like historical. It has 6 characters who are trying to pull off a heist, which is kind of like Six of Crows. I hear really good things about it, and it seems to have found family, so I would definitely recommend this, and it's definitely going to be a book that I probably pick up soon as well. So the next trope that was recommended was romance, but make it tragic. I'm gonna do a very hyped up book, and that is The Song of Achilles. I've talked about this on my book talk opinions on popular book talk books video. I think, yes, this is a tragic love story. Everyone knows that it rips your heart out. It's a retelling of the Trojan War, and it follows Achilles and Patroclus and how their relationship turns out, and this would definitely fall under tragic romance. That's all I'm going to say about it. It's really good if you like Greek mythology. Will probably make you cry. I didn't really cry that much, but it is sad and it is tragic. I am also going to recommend a book that I have not read but I would like to read, and it is Norwegian Wood. I have not read Norwegian Wood, but from what I understand, it is this man retelling his life in the 60s, and there is tragic romance involved. Other than that, I don't know much else about it. I think it's named after the Beatles song, right? Yeah, it's named after the Beatles song. I know it involves tragic romance and kind of like maybe unrequited love. So that is my other recommendation, and a book that I will be picking up as well. I'm basically recommending it to myself here. So both of those would be good reads for your romance or tragic. There's plenty more, but I didn't want to go too basic. I feel like Song of Achilles was already kind of basic. So the next trope I got was touch her and I'll kill you. So I have 3 recommendations for that as well. The first one is These Violent Delights. It is a Romeo and Juliet retelling, and I would say Roma definitely gives off the touch her and I'll kill you vibes, but so does a reversal of that. Juliet kind of has the touch him and I'll kill you vibes. This is a really good book if you like 1920s mobsters. I really enjoyed this book, so I definitely recommend this for a touch her and I'll kill you type of vibe. The next touch her and I'll kill you is, I think, Six of Crows. Kaz Brekker definitely, you know, gives off those vibes. He protects his investments, if you know what I mean. So I would definitely recommend this book for a touch her and I'll kill you kind of vibe. Kaz radiates that kind of energy with an edge. Plus, this is a really good book. So, if you don't already know, Six of Crows is about people going on a heist that should not be able to be done. I've talked about it before. If you want to hear more, you can go to some of my previous videos and see how I feel about Six of Crows. Last recommendation for Touch Her and I'll Kill You is Hush Hush. Okay, this is not a literary masterpiece, but if you're looking for that vibe, this will give it to you. I read this, I think, in like middle school, and it is fallen angels. He falls in love with like a human, and it is straight like I will literally murder you if you touch her. It has those vibes. So yeah, basically he falls in love with this human and he's a fallen angel and he feels like he needs to protect her, and it's a whole series. So if you're into that kind of like overly protective male, here you go, Hush Hush. So another trope that I was requested that I kind of felt like it was difficult to not go with a basic answer was childhood best friends. I picked one basic book and then I have 2 that I have not read but I think fit this trope. So the one I did pick was Shadow and Bone. Obviously this is from the Grishaverse as well. It follows Alina finding out that she's a Grisha and her whole journey through that, but her love interest is her best friend from childhood. They grew up in the same orphanage. It's got the childhood friends to lovers, besties to lovers, if that's your thing. And so this was obviously the one I thought of immediately when someone said childhood best friends. But I would also recommend 2 books that I have not read if this is what you're looking for. One is The Summer I Turned Pretty. I've never read these books. They don't appeal to me that much. I don't really like the best friends type of thing, but I know that they like grow up going or spending the summer together, like their childhood friends, and she falls in love with one of these like guys that she spent for like every summer with. So I think that's the premise behind it. So if you're looking for childhood best friends, maybe to lovers, The Summer I Turned Pretty is my recommendation. Or also I would recommend Love, Rosie. I have seen the movie and there's a book, and she grows up being childhood best friends with the guy that she's like in love with, and it follows like her kind of going into adulthood and how they like kind of go separate ways, and it just follows their stories. And I know that they have the childhood best friends dynamic going on in that book as well. So the next recommendation is When the Guy Loves the Girl First. This was really hard because a lot of times these romance books are in the female perspective, so it is kind of hard to know. I have two. Neither of them have I read. One of them I own. I've seen both of the movies / TV shows that go with these. So I would recommend one, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I think it's kind of obvious, well, I don't know, but it seems like, at least in the movie, that he's the first one to admit he loves her. So he admits it before she does. Maybe she feels those feelings first, but I definitely think that this is one where the male kind of admits his love for her before she admits it for him. And my other recommendation is Outlander. I've seen the show, and it's very obvious if you've seen the show that Jamie's feelings kind of are stronger before Claire's are. I don't know how it is in the book. Plus it's got time travel, Scotland, it's historical, also Jamie Fraser. That's all I really should say about that. He definitely, I think, admits the I love you before you love me feelings. So Outlander is my recommendation for that. It's a really good show, so I would assume it's a good book, and it is also on my Amazon wishlist, so I think I will eventually buy that as well and read it, but I have so many books right now. So if you're looking for He Loved Her First, Pride and Prejudice, or Outlander are my two recommendations for that one. So I also was asked to do fantasy with little to no romance. And so I first have The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I don't think there's any romance in this. I know in Lord of the Rings, or the trilogy, there is romance, but this is mainly just adventure and about the Hobbit, Bilbo Baggins going with dwarves to take back their gold that is under the mountain. This is in my introduction favorite books if you want to hear me talk more about what it's about and how I feel about this book. But there's not a lot of romance in this novel, and it's a good fantasy novel. And even though it's J.R.R. Tolkien, which can be kind of like hard to read sometimes, he's very descriptive, it's set for a younger audience, so this one is an easier read than the other ones. My other suggestion was on my anticipated 5-star reads. It was a 5-star read, in case you're wondering. It is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I absolutely adored this book. I guess you could say there's like a teeny bit of romance, but not like it's not about romance and it's not about lovey-dovey, whatever, but it is really good fantasy. We have extraordinary humans. They have abilities that other humans do not because of near-death experiences, and all I can say is Victor Vale is my new favorite morally gray male fictional character, and I absolutely love this book. You can go watch my 5-star anticipated read if you want to hear me talk more about this book, but I definitely think it fits under good fantasy with little to no romance. And the last one I only have one recommendation for because I didn't want to be basic, and it's Enemies to Lovers. I could have said ACOTAR or From Blood and Ash, which I haven't even read yet. I know that that's what everyone talks about right now, Kingdom of the Wicked, but I think one that is not as hyped up, but maybe it should be, is The Hating Game. I finished this book last night. It was so good. They work across from each other and hate each other. That's their game they play. They have lots of games they play, like the staring game where they stare at each other. But the very beginning of this book, you're like, oh my gosh, they are so mean to each other. All they do is berate each other and are terrible. But they slowly become lovers, and it honestly was really cute and sweet, and I was really surprised how much I liked this book because I don't tend to like pick up romances. I like fantasies that include romance, but this was really good, and it's gonna be a movie, so you should definitely pick this up if you want to see the movie, or I mean just watch the movie. But The Hating Game was a really good Enemies to Lovers in my opinion if you're looking for something that's not the typical fantasy Enemies to Lovers. So I thought this had a great balance of the Enemies to Lovers without being super like too much to handle. Thanks for watching, and thank you if you sent in a recommendation on my Instagram. Thank you for supporting me over there and supporting me over here. I hope that I helped you find a recommendation that you'll like. See you in the next one.